Welcome to the podcast Crime Salad, where we talk true crime. I'm your host, Ashley, and with me always is my husband and partner in crime, Ricky. The purpose of this podcast is to honor the victims through ethical storytelling in the hopes of preventing future tragedies. We want our stories to resonate and educate others in hopes that some of these similar cases with identifiable patterns can be prevented. Now, before we jump in, please let us warn you that this is a true crime podcast. The details of this episode may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion advised. In the early morning hours of February 9th, 2014, a killer jumped over the back gate of a 9,200 square foot mansion located in the exclusive neighborhood of Peppertree Bend in the affluent seaside adjacent town of San Juan Capistrano. The main house was 8,700 square feet, and the pool house was almost 500 square feet. The killer knew his way around, having been to the property many times in the past. And with purpose, he walked past the pool house and entered into the multi-level home from a balcony. And once he was inside, he paced the hallways for about 30 minutes, trying to talk himself into what he felt like he had to do. The couple he was there to kill had ruined his life, or at least it felt that way to him. He had a seething rage and single-minded focus. When he finally felt ready, he walked into the bedroom of 54-year-old Andra Sachs and 57-year-old Brad Sachs and pointed his Ruger semi-automatic .22 rifle at them and began firing. He shot Andra 12 times and shot Brad 10 times. His number one goal was to make sure both of them were dead before he left. When he was done, the room was covered in blood. It had soaked into the bed and the carpet and was spattered all over the walls and even the ceiling. It looked like a massacre. The overkill would later become a glaring clue. Then, as an afterthought, the killer walked past the couple's 8-year-old son's room, Landon Sachs, and from the doorway, he pointed his rifle at the bed and hit the handsome little boy once in the torso. Next, he stood in the doorway of 17-year-old Alexis Sachs. She was terrified, hiding under the blankets, praying her comforter would shield her from the madman who was loose in her home. He shot once into her room, and the bullet miraculously missed her. The only other person in the home that night was 15-year-old Lena. She was sleeping blissfully unaware of the unspeakable violence going on in her home. Police believe he spared Lena only because he knew she slept with 2 of the family's 3 dogs. He didn't want to risk warning her and giving her a chance to call for help. He felt like he had been inside the home for an eternity, and suddenly he couldn't get out of there fast enough. Now, fortunately, the couple's 2 oldest children, Miles, who was 21, and Ashton, who was 19, were safely several states away in Washington. Miles was attending Washington State University in Pullman, and Ashton was attending community college in Seattle. 17-year-old Alexis, still paralyzed in fear, eventually went to her brother's room where he was moaning in pain and crying for help. He was no longer on his bed. He was now on the floor reaching for one of his stuffed animals for comfort. He told her that he couldn't feel his legs, and he was worried about their parents. Alexis did her best to comfort her brother and told him that everything would be okay and help is on the way. A little after 2 o'clock in the morning, she made a call to 911 and reported that her parents had both been shot and her little brother needed help immediately. When the Orange County Sheriff's Department arrived at the scene, they found the bodies of Andra and Brad lying in their bed. They had been ambushed and executed. From a review of the evidence, it appeared that the killer committed these horrific acts in cold blood. The couple never had a chance to fight back. As you could imagine, this murder shocked the affluent community and all who knew the couple. This appeared to be a family marked by tragedy, but it didn't start out that way. Friends and family described Andra as a great mom who was driven by only 2 things in her life: her career and later her family. Andra started her life in the suburbs of College Park, Maryland, where her father worked for the National Security Administration and her mother took on a traditional role as a homemaker. And when she was about 15 years old, her father retired from government life and moved his wife, son, and 4 daughters to San Diego, California. While moving across the country with his big family, he was juggling the sale of one home and the purchase of another. For a few weeks, he had fallen on hard times and was struggling to feed his family. According to an interview that Leslie Summers, Andra's sister, gave to a documentary show called The Real Murders of Orange County, she said her sister was traumatized by the experience. Andra told her sister Leslie that she would never allow this to happen to her and that she would make it her life's work to provide for her own large family someday. After graduating from high school, Andra attended California State Long Beach and obtained a degree in business. Right out of college, she began working for a company that sold integrated computer circuits. She was so successful that she decided that she could make her own money by working for herself. An opportunity came her way to buy computer parts at below wholesale prices. Andra knew that she could sell those and turn a huge profit. As a result, she founded her own company that specialized in selling computer chips and semiconductors. And she named her business Minority Electronics and was soon getting lucrative government contracts as a wholesale distributor. It wouldn't be long before she met her husband, Bradford Sachs. Unlike Andra, Brad grew up in the affluent coastal town of San Clemente, California. Some of you older history buffs might recognize the name of this town. Former President Richard Nixon had a home in San Clemente. He often referred to it as the Western White House, which he named Casa Pacifica. He used it for a retreat and would often conduct official business there, hosting meetings with his staff and foreign dignitaries. Brad was born and raised in San Clemente and graduated from San Clemente High School. According to an article in the Orange County Register, which is the local paper, Brad had a passion for surfing, being in the water, and playing the drums. He first met Andra at a computer trade show where she and her sister Leslie were selling computer parts. While Andra was described as intense and in your face, Brad was described as a laid-back surfer dude who never raised his voice. The two were polar opposites who balanced each other out. Soon, they were married and running several businesses together, including a telemarketing company and a wine bar located in Sunset Beach. At first, the couple lived in an ocean view condo in Pacific Palisades, but within 6 years, the couple had 4 children, and so they moved to a 5,200 square foot mansion on the water in Huntington Beach Harbor. Miles was their oldest child, followed by Ashton, and a few years later, they welcomed 2 daughters, Alexis and Sabrina, 11 months apart. By that time, the couple had acquired a new company called Flashcom. They purchased with $15 million that they raised from several venture capitalists. Flashcom was an internet DSL service. Life was good for the couple until April 28, 1999. That was the day the family was forever fractured, which some believed led to their murders 15 years later. On that day, Brad was out of town on business, and Andra was at work when she received a frantic phone call from the couple's nanny. Lorena, the 28-year-old nanny, was reportedly in the kitchen cooking when she looked out the window and she saw 2-year-old Alexis outside on the deck and near the spa area. She lifted 16-month-old Sabrina out of her high chair and carried her outside to get Alexis away from the jacuzzi and back into the house. And at that moment, Alexis allegedly began fussing and kicking and wiggling, which caused Lorena to drop Sabrina onto the deck. And within seconds, Sabrina had been sucked into the spa and was trapped at the bottom. A horrified and panicked Lorena called for her husband, who was upstairs, to come down and help free the baby from the powerful suction of the spa. Neither of them spoke English, and Lorena's husband attempted to provide CPR despite not knowing the fundamentals. In hysterics, Lorena called Andra, who instructed her to hang up and call 911. But again, the language barrier delayed emergency services. When paramedics finally arrived, they did their best to revive Sabrina, who was pronounced dead at Huntington Beach Hospital. The experience of losing a child is an unimaginable tragedy that can profoundly impact the dynamics of a relationship. While every situation is unique, some parents may find that the overwhelming grief and loss that they face after the death of a child can strain their marriage to the breaking point. The immense emotional pain and trauma can manifest differently in individuals, leading to differences in coping mechanisms and communication styles. The grief process itself can be complex and deeply personal, and each parent may navigate it in their own way. This can create a disconnect or a sense of isolation between partners, making it difficult to find solace and support in each other. Additionally, the loss of a child may expose pre-existing issues or conflicts within the relationship, which can be intensified by the grief and strain experienced. Consequently, some couples may ultimately decide to divorce as they struggle to reconcile their grieving process and find common ground amidst their profound loss. It's important to note that not all parents divorce after the loss of a child, and some can find solace and strength together during this incredibly difficult time. Unfortunately, the Sachs marriage was another casualty on top of the loss of their fourth child. Less than a year after Sabrina's tragic death, Brad filed for divorce, accusing Andra of mental cruelty and being unbalanced. He wrote in his declaration that, quote, Andra has some psychological problems that results in manic sessions that are unpredictable, unfathomable, and incapable of being rationalized. Andra didn't hold back in her response. She accused Brad of being lazy, neglectful, and more interested in golfing or surfing than being a parent or a partner. In her declaration dated January of 2000, she wrote, quote, to this day, we have had no counseling as a family, and we have never dealt with the tragedy of Sabrina's death and the irreparable effect it has had on all of our lives. While the couple originally agreed to continue working together, before long, the board at Flashcom demanded that Brad fire Andra. They cited her erratic behavior, destructive raging, and the contemptuous manner in which she treated employees. Andra felt deeply hurt and betrayed by Brad, who had previously promised that they would always work together for the sake of their children. Andra was further incensed when Brad was awarded $800,000 from the sale of their Huntington Harbor home. But the problems weren't over for Andra. Throughout her life, she was either suing someone or being sued. It was after threats to sue Flashcom for breach of contract that they agreed to pay her a $9 million settlement. But this windfall would be short-lived. Within a year of her leaving Flashcom, they filed for bankruptcy. And because Andra was paid her settlement within 12 months of the insolvency, the bankruptcy trustee determined that Andra's $9 million settlement was deemed a preferential transfer. In California, the bankruptcy court has the authority to undo a preferential transfer, recover the assets, and redistribute them fairly among all the creditors involved. This helps to maintain fairness and ensure an equal distribution to all the debtors' assets among creditors during the bankruptcy process. In short, Andra was being sued by the Chapter 11 bankruptcy trustee for a return of $9 million, something she continued to fight until her death. On top of several lawsuits, Brad was also suing Andra for custody of their children. In retaliation, Andra filed a restraining order against Brad in March of 2000, alleging he had assaulted her in front of their 3 children. But just a few weeks after that filing, Andra and Brad decided to reconcile. While they never remarried, they stayed together until the time of their murders. Andra decided that with the loss of Sabrina, her family wasn't complete, so they decided to honor the little girl that they had lost by adopting an older child from Russia. They found a little 8-year-old girl named Lena and fell in love with her. However, when they learned she had a 2-year-old brother, Landon, they couldn't leave him behind, so the Sachs were now a family of 7. And by this time, Andra had amassed a fortune in business ventures as well as a commercial and residential real estate for $80 million. It was in 2009 that the couple bought their San Juan Capistrano mansion on Peppertree Bend. The modern home backs up to a green hillside with sweeping ocean views on the Dana Point Harbor. The family was finally complete. Their children were thriving in local and private schools. Miles, their oldest son, was doing well and in college at Washington State University. In 2012, Andra gushed to her sister Leslie that Ashton had recently graduated from Dana Hills High School and was an A student, and he had plans to study computer science at the University of California in Irvine. And after college, he had plans to go to law school. She wrote her sister, quote, "We are so proud of Ashton. He's really blossoming into a fine young man. All the hard work is finally paying off, and we could not be any more proud." Now, just 12 months later, Ashton's world came crashing down around him. He had just broken up with his girlfriend, and he was taking it extremely hard, something that neither of his parents took seriously at the time. Just as in the case of Sabrina's death, the family believed that Ashton should suppress any feelings of loss and move on with his life. But Ashton was struggling. He appeared to lack coping skills or resiliency. He was no longer paying attention in school, he had failed out, and he was playing video games all day. Eventually, Ashton overdosed on pills, which landed him in the hospital for 3 days. Instead of getting their son into counseling, Andra and Brad thought a change of scenery would be good for him. By 2013, Andra had enrolled Ashton in North Seattle Community College, purchased him a $250,000 condo, and bought him a brand new car. Ashton and Miles both came home for Christmas in 2013. They both went back to Washington after their winter break, and neither of them would see their parents alive again.
On February 9th, 2014, within hours of their parents' death, both Ashton and Miles were contacted and told about the tragedy. They both immediately headed to the airport and came back to care for their siblings. Ashton would spend hours at Landon's bedside at Mission Hospital, holding his hand and willing his brother to get better. Miles went into protector mode and moved the family to another home their parents had recently purchased on Coronado Island in San Diego. Just before his death, Brad had been diagnosed with an extremely aggressive form of Parkinson's disease. Andra decided to downsize and simplify their lives. She thought it would be better for Brad to be in a one-level home for mobility purposes. It was there that Miles began putting his family back together. Landon, who had his spinal cord severed, was in a nearby rehab facility learning to navigate life in a wheelchair. At Andra and Brad's funeral, 19-year-old Ashton gave a moving and emotional eulogy. He told the mourners that his mother was always his hero, and he told the crowd to take solace in the fact that Andra and Brad would be together forever. Following the murders, the police found themselves in a unique position of having quite a few leads to follow. After the couple's death, numerous comments were calling Andra a slumlord and saying that she wouldn't be missed. There were dozens of lawsuits from disgruntled tenants looking to recover back their deposits or rent abatement for uninhabitable conditions. Some former tenants rejoiced over Andra's death, stating the Wicked Witch was dead and she got what was coming to her. As police cleared the numerous suspects, they finally got their break in the case when a neighbor's surveillance camera caught the suspect's car entering the dead-end cul-de-sac on the night of the murder. As the investigation unfolded, the police discovered that the couple's 19-year-old son, Ashton Sachs, was a suspect. In the weeks that followed, the shocking truth about what had happened that night began to emerge. Detectives knew their suspect's car was white, but they couldn't make out the make or model. They took a photo of the car to the FBI, who were able to match the brake lights to a Toyota Prius. The police discovered that Ashton had a white Prius, but he was in Seattle the day of his parents' murder. The police had called him in Seattle at noon to notify him of his parents' deaths. The detective said that he was so upset, he was worried that Ashton might harm himself before Miles could get to him on a plane and back to California. However, when they finally received Ashton's phone records, they told a different story of what had happened that night. Police were able to follow Ashton's cell phone on the 8th during his 18-hour drive from his condo in Seattle to his parents' home on Peppertree Bend. He arrived back in Orange County around 10 p.m. He stopped at a commercial building his parents owned on Calle Perfecto. Apparently, he was killing time until he knew that everyone would be asleep. He approached the neighborhood at 1:30 a.m., he jumped the back fence, entered the home, and then took another 30 minutes before he worked up the courage to murder his parents. Investigators discovered that Ashton had purchased a gun and ammunition just weeks before the murder. They also found evidence on his computer that suggested he had been planning the crime for months. He had searched online for information about silencers, gunshot wounds, and how to get away with murder. After the murder, Ashton went back to his parents' commercial property on Calle Perfecto. He made a phone call to an auto transportation company and had them pick up his white Prius and ship it back home in Seattle. Then he took a cab to John Wayne Airport and flew back to Seattle to establish his alibi and be available when someone would finally call him to inform him that his parents were murdered. When police called the transportation company, they learned that Ashton hadn't yet picked up his car or paid for it. After his parents' death, he hadn't been back to Seattle to collect the car. When police seized the vehicle, they were pleasantly surprised to learn that the murder weapon was still inside the car. Police surprised Ashton at their new home on Coronado Island. They asked him to come to the police station for some routine follow-up questions. They cornered Ashton with a series of questions until he couldn't lie his way out of the story anymore. They asked him why they had video surveillance of him at John Wayne Airport heading back to Seattle on the morning of his parents' murders. And it didn't take long after that to confess. He told them that, quote, "At like 2 a.m., I drove up to the house. I didn't even know where I was really going, and then I kind of went crazy. I don't know how to describe it. It was just my heart was beating really fast, and I wasn't like normal. I wasn't even normal. I went into my parents' room first. I just walked up and started shooting. I left the room, ran out, walked past Landon's room, shot at towards him, and then I ran downstairs to Lexi's room. I shot her once and then ran. I couldn't even remember. It was just a rush. I'm like not myself. I don't know. I was something twisted." When the investigators asked him to describe his relationship with his parents, he stated, quote, "I always thought of my mom like the only person in the world who I could really trust, but she didn't care about me. My dad never really liked me or loved me. We were never close. He was mean to me and would try to exclude me from things." When asked why he chose to kill his parents, he stated, quote, "I just thought I had to do it because I felt like they had fucked me up really bad and it's their fault. Before I killed myself, I felt like I should do it." Ashton told the detectives that he originally went in with a plan for a murder-suicide. However, after the killing, he got scared and ran. Detectives challenged him on this explanation. They asked him why he wore gloves on the night of the murder. He explained he didn't want to leave behind any fingerprints. They told him that this didn't make sense for two reasons. First, he had lived at the house and his fingerprints wouldn't have been a red flag. Second, why wear gloves and worry about fingerprints if you were always going to kill yourself when you were done? Ashton didn't seem to have a logical answer to these questions. It also didn't make sense for him to ship his car home, fly back early, and try to maintain an alibi of being in Seattle during the murders if he also planned to kill himself.
At first, Ashton pleaded not guilty to his parents' murder, even once trying to fire his attorney and represent himself. But suddenly he changed his mind and decided to plead guilty to the first-degree murder of both of his parents and the attempted murder of Landon and Lexi. Prosecutor Mike Murray warned the judge that, quote, "The defendant is a sociopath. He has no remorse, no empathy. All he cares about is himself. He is a manipulator. Judge Prickett agreed. He explained to Ashton that he carefully weighed his sentencing decision with the law and the facts, highlighting the shameless brutality of Ashton's actions. He pointed out that Ashton shot his father 10 times, including in the face, and he shot his mother 12 times. He told Ashton he needlessly shot his brother, an innocent 8-year-old child, in his sleep. He similarly fired a shot at his sleeping sister, who, by the grace of God, he missed shooting. None of Ashton's siblings attended his sentencing hearing. The prosecutor read Miles's statement to the court, where he thanked the police and the prosecutors for their hard work and diligence in solving his parents' murders. And he never once addressed his brother, who no longer mattered. Ashton's aunt attended the sentencing hearing, and she told Ashton that she held him responsible for his poor choices. She told Ashton about the consequences of his actions. As a result of his depraved acts, his little brother was now paralyzed for life from the chest down. She told him she was shocked he had the gall and hypocrisy to speak at his parents' funeral, knowing all along he was responsible for everyone's grieving. His aunt was upset he chose to not give a statement and explain himself. Two of Andra's sisters believed Ashton's motive for killing his parents was greed and money. He had stopped attending classes at community college and was spending all of his days playing video games. When his mother told him that he had to get a part-time job to pay for some of his expenses, he was insulted and outraged. Justin Montano from the Orange County Sheriff's Department had his own theory. He believed it was a revenge killing for feeling slighted by his family. He stated in an interview with CBS News that, quote, "When you look into it and peel the onion of this case, it comes down to resentment of his brothers, and that's what drove him to commit these murders." His aunt told investigators that Ashton had an unhealthy obsession with the Menendez brothers. Lyle and Eric Menendez were two brothers who killed their parents in 1989, and then they went on a spending spree with their parents' money. We actually covered this case a while ago. Judge Prickett sentenced Ashton to 4 consecutive life sentences plus 100 years. He took his parents' lives, he altered his brother's life, and he destroyed his own life in the process. Landon Sachs graduated from J. Sarah Catholic High School in 2023, the first in the school to earn a Division I scholarship for wheelchair tennis. He hasn't let his circumstances or his disability define him. Landon also won an award in courage from his graduating class. The fact that Landon was able to earn a scholarship to a major university is a testament to his resilience and determination in the face of adversity. Landon's accomplishment is particularly impressive given the tragedy that he and his family have endured. Losing his parents to a violent crime and surviving a near-fatal attack himself would be traumatic for anyone, let alone a young child. The fact that Landon was able to overcome these challenges and excel in a sport that he loves is a testament to his strength and character. Miles Sachs, who was just 22 years old at the time of his parents' murders, had to battle one of his aunts for control of his parents' assets and has risen to the occasion, running their businesses successfully while becoming a father figure for the rest of his siblings. He generally likes to maintain a low profile and shuns attention of any kind. As the patriarch of the family, Miles is driven by duty and a promise he made to his mother that if anything ever happened to her, he would make sure to keep the family together. As far as Miles is concerned, Ashton doesn't exist. However, at 30 years old now, Miles was recently diagnosed with kidney disease, and he will need a life-saving kidney transplant. It's an unimaginable tragedy on top of a life already filled with difficulties. He told NBC News that he is much less worried about himself and more worried about his brother and sisters. He stated, quote, I'm not ready to go yet. I've got so much ahead of me still, and they need me and I need them. We wish Miles well in his health journey and his search for a kidney donor. May he find the support and strength that he needs during this challenging time, and may a suitable donor come forward to provide him with renewed hope and improve his well-being. Our thoughts and best wishes are with Miles as he navigates these new challenges and paths towards total healing and recovery. And this completes this week's episode. Thank you all so much for listening to us. And also, we want to give a really awesome shout out to 3 new patrons. They are receiving all of the episodes ad-free. They also get some bonus content, and they can check out our old episodes from when we first began. But please be gentle with us because some of them are a little cringy. We want to welcome Aaron, Alexis, and Madison. Thank you so much for becoming a part of Crime Salad. All right, we will see you next week.